was just so brazen and obvious at some level. So I guess he didn't seem worried about being caught.
He needs to resign. He is unfit to serve as a member of Congress. His conduct was not only unethical and unbecoming and embarrassing, it's criminal.
My faith is important, but I'm not rigid about it, and it's not, for me personally, a primary consideration. Everybody on the Republican side is pro-life.
Hello, I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. New York Republican Congressman George Santos says he won't run for re-election in 2024. His announcement comes after the release of a House Ethics Committee report that found evidence he, Santos, broke the law. The committee unanimously voted to refer evidence of the congressman's alleged wrongdoing to the Justice Department. CBS News Congressional correspondent Scott McFarland joins me now here on the set. Scott, what does the Ethics Committee report say?
I've read a few of these reports through the years. I've never seen this kind of blistering, scathing language in this exhaustive a denunciation of a member of Congress. Usually their language is soft. It's ambiguous or gentle. This was not gentle. This was not soft. They didn't just say he acted unethically. They say he stole money. They didn't just say he had misconduct in office. They say he committed fraud. They said what they found paralleled the criminal case against him. And there are two headlines through the afternoon after the report came out. First of all, Santos says he's not running for re-election. He's not going to campaign for office again in 2024. And there's a growing number of his colleagues who did not vote to expel him earlier this month. They said they will now. His days could be numbered.
I read in the press release that accompanied the report from the Ethics Committee, Scott, a reference to additional uncharged and unlawful conduct referred to the Department of Justice. Do we have any idea what that is or isn't?
Some of this parallels the federal indictment. Some of this begs the question, is there going to be an expansion in the indictment? The feds
Did the Ethics Committee find more, in other words?
Did they find more things that the Department of Justice was unaware of? That's a question for the Department of Justice. But here's what we could say paralleled the prosecution. They found that he took campaign money and used it for himself, for some very luxurious things, the type of things that most people don't buy out of their wallets. They also found there was some level of misconduct involving the reports submitted to the Federal Elections Commission, and that he was part of that. You know, in the prosecution, they had said, or Santos had said, it was my bookkeepers, it was my campaign staff. His defense lawyers have said it was all his other people who did that. Ethics Committee said they found it was him who had responsibility for those Federal Elections Commission reports. That could differentiate it from the Justice Department prosecution, or maybe it tells the Fed something they already knew. And
you've talked to some people who are responsible for putting this report together, yes?
One of the Democrats, as part of the House Ethics Committee, assigned the task of investigating George Santos, is a former federal prosecutor, Glenn Ivey of Maryland. He spoke about the case and about what he found. Take a listen.
What struck you most from what you found?
You know, I think it was just how repeated it was. I mean, it was just so brazen and obvious at some level. So I guess he didn't seem worried about being caught, but the venality that was there.
When does Congress move to expel George Santos? When do they make a second attempt? Could happen. New legislation could pop tomorrow, could pop this weekend. They're not back in town till the week after Thanksgiving. They have to be here to do that. And I'll note the timing. The Ethics Committee did him one courtesy, waiting for Congress to leave town just before releasing the report.
There are other matters pending before Congress. It appears we are going to get past the shutdown saga. Scenarios 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, whatever, might have played out around Thanksgiving, Christmas. All of that now kicked into January and February. Good news for the country and the markets and everyone who was curious, yes?
For a while. The imminence of a government shutdown is starting to be reckoned with on Capitol Hill. They realize that they've just painted themselves into the tightest of corners. They've given themselves the holidays in a few weeks, but the Republicans in the House Conference Major have said no more of these short-term deals, no more caving to Democrats. The House Speaker told us yesterday he's not cutting any more short-term deals either. Well, the political chemistry hasn't changed whatsoever. Democrats still run the Senate. They're not going to go for steep cuts or big policy changes. Republicans say the opposite. A protracted government shutdown now seems more likely than not.
And there was evidence this week, Scott, was there not, that even under the leadership of this new House Republican Speaker, the same underlying conflicts prevent the Republican majority from passing individual spending bills?
Only it's gotten worse. Not only does he have a faction of House Freedom Caucus members who have defied him the way they defied Kevin McCarthy, but now he's got a problem with the moderates. The New York freshman Republicans blocked a bill because of concerns about Amtrak funding. They had certain concerns with a different bill yesterday. Now you've got a 7-10 split. You've got to navigate. You've got two different pins to knock down with the same throw. That's why January is so rife with danger.
Even good bowlers don't like a 7-10 split. Scott McFarland, thank you very much. Later this half hour, my conversation with New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, who has been not once, not twice, but repeatedly calling for Congressman George Santos to resign. While former President Trump still holds a commanding lead in national polls and in Iowa over the Republican field, evangelical voters in Iowa could still be up for grabs. Multiple candidates are attending a forum tomorrow hosted by influential evangelical leader Bob Vander Plaat's organization. That's known as Family Leader. Vander Plaat has not yet made an endorsement in the race. CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now from Des Moines. Aaron, what do evangelical voters in Iowa, they are self-identified as such and usually Republicans, make, based on your conversations with them, of the GOP field?
Major, good to be with you. They're essentially matching what faith leaders have been telling me over the past week, that this evangelical bloc of voters who have supported Trump in big numbers since 2016 are still up for grabs this cycle. A lot of them note that this is the time that they'll make their decision with 2 months left until the caucus. My colleague, Allison Novello, went to a DeSantis event and talked to a good amount of faith voters over the weekend. Take a listen to what they had to say.
I'm in the stage now where I'm determining who I'm going to vote for. But DeSantis is right up there. I mean, and so's Nikki. But right now I'm losing a little flavor for Trump.
Even Trump, for example, had said that, you know, he was a Christian and stuff, but there are so many things that he himself had, you know, that he has said, that he has done, that it's like, not so much.
Now, what Allison gathered there and what I've been hearing from the campaign trail here in Iowa is that voters don't necessarily believe that Trump has as big of a lead as he does in the polls. They do think he's the front runner, but they think a lot of things could change between now and January 15th.
Aaron, to help our audience quantify this in terms of turnout, historically, evangelical voters in the Republican caucuses have represented anywhere from 60 to 63% of turnout. Is there a sense you have on the ground that that's going to be the range it's going to fall in January, come January 15th in the next round of caucuses?
It does seem that they will be a substantial block of voters, but the question is, where will they go? Will they stick with Trump, who has courted these voters since his time in the White House, or will they go with DeSantis, who has painstakingly made overtures to the evangelical community? And whether that is split up kind of impacts the clout they have in terms of pushing a candidate over the hump.
And what about Bob Vander Plaat's endorsement? There is a sense, both here in Washington and I think in Iowa, that he's leaning very strongly in Governor Santos' direction. Governor DeSantis has already gotten the endorsement of Kim Reynolds. What do we know?
Well, when I talked to Vander Plaat yesterday, he said that the jury's still out, that he is using this forum where he's hosting DeSantis, Haley, and Vivek Ramaswamy for a roundtable this Friday. But from talking to sources that were on a fundraising call with Governor DeSantis on Monday, they said that he told them that he's expecting Vander Plaat to endorse him within a week after the summit. One told me that DeSantis said he would be surprised if Vander Plaat does not. Now, it's important to note that the DeSantis campaign denies that he said that, and Vander Plaat said that he still has time to make a final decision and will make one before Christmas.
Everyone will play it coy, at least for now. Aaron Navarro in Des Moines, thank you so much. Next, what does Congressman Santos' future look like in the House? I posed that question to one of his colleagues, Congressman Mike Lawler. You're streaming America Decides.
I have a right, a constitutional right to defend myself, and I will do that. And I look forward to doing that. I look forward to seeing the process play out. And if the Ethics Committee finds a reason to remove me, that is the process. This isn't about politics.
Welcome back to America Decides. I think you and I can file what we just heard under That Was Then, This Is Now. What you just saw was New York Congressman George Santos referring back in May to the House Ethics Committee's process, its investigation. Today, he called the Ethics Committee's findings, quote, a politicized smear. Mike Lawler, Congressman, 17th District of New York, Republican, joins us now. Congressman, good to see you. The Ethics Committee, on a unanimous basis, said today that George Santos, your Republican colleague, also representing a district in New York, knowingly filed false FEC, Federal Election Commission reports, used campaign money for personal expenses, engaged in fraudulent conduct, and engaged in willful violations of the Ethics in Government Act. Your reaction to the Ethics Committee's report, and what effect do you think it will have on Santos's continued membership in the House of Representatives?
Well, it confirms everything that I suspected. And as I've said repeatedly since December, he needs to resign. He is unfit to serve as a member of Congress. His conduct was not only unethical and unbecoming and embarrassing, it's criminal. With the guilty plea of his campaign treasurer just a few weeks ago and the guilty plea of a campaign aide this week, and now the ethics report, there is more than enough information for him to be removed from Congress. I and several of my New York colleagues had introduced an expulsion resolution a few weeks ago. It was voted down on a bipartisan basis. But I think now, with this report coming out, it is clear what he did, how he did it, and I think it's more than enough for members to vote to remove him overwhelmingly. So, if he had any decency, he would resign. But in the absence of that, obviously, when we get back from the Thanksgiving recess, I suspect there will be a expulsion resolution brought to the floor, at which time he will be removed from Congress.
You suspect that he will be removed on that second vote?
I do. I think this information is damning. The report is clear and convincing. And, he refused to cooperate with the Ethics Committee. He defrauded donors. He defrauded the NRCC and, had campaign staff impersonating Speaker McCarthy's former chief of staff. The list of fraudulent conduct and criminal conduct is just breathtaking, coming on top of all the lies that he told in advance of his election to Congress.
Congressman Lawler, the Ethics Committee release also makes reference to additional uncharged, unlawful conduct that the Ethics Committee is referring to the Justice Department. Do you have any idea what that might be, and do you think that will add further weight to the consideration of expelling Congressman Santos?
Well, there's a 50-plus page report that lays out much of the conduct. Obviously, there's been 2 indictments already, a superseding indictment that came down just about a month ago after the guilty plea of his treasurer. So, he's already facing 23 felony counts, and I suspect more to come given this report.
The Congressman Santos has released a statement calling the Ethics Committee report, and I quote, biased, disgusting, politicized smear. Your reaction?
Look, it's a delusional ranting of someone who has proven himself incapable of telling the truth. And obviously, the information contained in that report, coupled with the guilty plea of his treasurer, the guilty plea of a campaign staffer, is more than enough information to remove him from Congress. He is unfit for public office, and Congress should act immediately in the absence of his resignation.
In that statement, Congressman Santos said he will not seek re-election in 2024. Your reaction to that, and do you think that will take any steam out of the effort to expel him?
Delusional to think that he was going to be reelected in 2024. Look, at the end of the day, he was never going to be on the ballot in 2024. He would have lost a Republican primary. But very gracious of him to understand that he will not be running for re-election in 2024. He should do more than that and resign, and effective immediately.
Congressman Lawler, from your perspective, is there a larger story here in that something was missed in the campaign that George Santos conducted, and that he should have been scrutinized more before landing in Congress, either by the Republican Party, the press in the congressional district in which he ran or the Democratic opponent who challenged him?
Well, I think obviously, we've certainly seen in recent years, an increase in the number of people running for office to become quasi-celebrities. We need to make sure that the people running for public office are serious, sober-minded, and focused on addressing the challenges facing the American people. I think it's incumbent on both parties, obviously, to make sure that the people running on their ballot line meet those standards and certainly are who they say they are. And obviously, the press needs to do a better job of covering some of these races. Oftentimes, they don't focus on these issues until it becomes a story. And there was local press that was trying to expose his conduct and behavior, but obviously a lot of blame to go all around here.
Do you think there's any blame that should go to the local Republican Party, state Republican Party, or national Republican Party for failing to vet George Santos thoroughly?
Look, I think the Republican Party would readily admit, a better job should have been done in screening him. I know there were members of our party who did not want to support him because of some of the questions that they had. But ultimately, again, a lot of blame can go around here. The bottom line is he does not belong in Congress, and we need to move to expel him.
Hard prediction. Will George Santos in January of 2024 be a member in good standing of the U.S. House of Representatives?
No.
Congressman Mike Lawler, 17th District of New York and Republican. We thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Major.
Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville's blockade of military nominations over the Pentagon's policy on abortion-related travel has created intense infighting within the Senate Republican Conference. One of Tuberville's critics, Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan, also a Republican, spoke with CBS News senior investigative reporter Catherine Herridge on the matter.
You were on the Senate floor until nearly 4 a.m. trying to move forward these military nominations. Are you willing to go back to the Senate floor for a third time?
Well, Catherine, I made a commitment to our troops and their families. And when I make commitments, particularly to America's military members and their families, I keep them.
Have you ruled out backing Democrats in support of this rules change?
Well, look, like I said, I'm still, you don't always notice it, but I've been working with Senator Tuberville for months. What I'm still trying to do is right now look at other ways to address this without having to go that route.
The Pentagon says more than 450 officers have been impacted by the holds conducted by Senator Tuberville. The Biden campaign is zeroing in on a few key issues against former President Trump. Coming up, what social issues they want to keep on voters' minds. You are streaming America Decides. Welcome back to America Decides. President Biden's reelection campaign appears to be taking a more aggressive approach when discussing former President Trump, whom it assumes, well, there's no validation on this yet, that he will be the Republican nominee. In a campaign release, it said, quote, Donald Trump isn't just echoing the words of Hitler and Mussolini by saying he will root out vermin from within. He's planning real action to follow in their footsteps, unquote. Kevin Munoz, a spokesman for the Biden campaign, joins us now. Kevin, it has been reported, as you well know, that if President Trump is reelected, he plans to round up millions, that's their words, of undocumented Americans, detain them in sprawling camps, deport them, and reduce due process. Is this what you're talking about, and what do you think it portends?
Well, thank you for having me, Major. And you're exactly right. This is what it portends. And this was CBS's excellent reporting about just how extreme, how anti-immigrant, and how anti-American, frankly, Donald Trump's platform is. And if he was sent back to the White House, it's not just immigrants that he's going after. He's going after our rights. He's going after our democracy. And we think it's our job, it's our duty, actually, that we continue to echo this, talk very aggressively about the stakes of next year's election.
It is assumed that immigration, broadly discussed, is a weakness for the president's reelection campaign. Do you disagree?
We absolutely disagree. We know that these are some of the issues that mobilize the coalition that sent Joe Biden to the White House in historic numbers in 2020. People don't want birthright citizenship ended. People do not want mothers to have their children ripped away from us. And they really want action on immigration. So we're not going to shy away from this. We are encouraged that so many immigrant groups, so many Latino groups have come to call out this extreme and xenophobic platform from Donald Trump. And we're going to continue talking about it.
Kevin, your experience started, as I understand it, in Florida politics. Florida has been one of those places in which the Trump campaign in 2020 and Republicans generally have made some gains among some Hispanic constituencies. That is also somewhat true in Texas. Do you fear in those two states, as well as others, the polling that continues to show independents and others dissatisfied with the Biden record on immigration could be a significant problem in 2024?
Well, Major, the Latino community across the country is incredibly diverse. But what we do know is that Latinos are deliverable. They have an agenda from Joe Biden of historic unemployment, investments in small business, addressing gun violence, and of course, immigration. These are the issues that matter in our key battleground states here. As for my home state, that is one of the most diverse states of Hispanics, and it's a state where Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans have talked a lot about delivering for Latinos, but they haven't. They failed. It's all lip service. We're going to continue to spread that message. I'm very encouraged that I'm a part of a campaign that is investing earlier and larger than ever into Latinos and Latino media, and that's our approach. We're not going to take any vote for granted.
In an interview with the New York Times, Stephen Miller, who was a significant voice on immigration policy during Trump's administration and would be, in all likelihood, should he be reelected, said, and I quote, "Any activists who doubt President Trump's resolve in the slightest are making a drastic error. He promised the most spectacular migration crackdown." What does that mean to you?
Take Stephen Miller and take Donald Trump at their word. They are racist. They are anti-immigrant. They are echoing the rhetoric of Adolf Hitler. And we need to take them at the word because this is what's on the ballot next November. We have a lot of work to do between now and then, but we need to understand that this very well could be an election that decides our democracy. Stephen Miller's words, not mine.
And when the president talks about the blood of this nation being poisoned and or vermin, what do you hear in that? What does the Biden reelection campaign intend to do about messaging that is that specific and that rooted in a very dark time in world history?
Well, look, Major, it's incredibly dangerous. It's also very unpopular. This is the same guy that says he's a winner, but has lost Republicans election after election after election, including in last week's elections that were really strong for Democrats. It's just a sign that Americans do not want this racist, vile, and very anti-democratic, frankly, rhetoric and platform to be in the White House or really in any of these places. So we have to continue to call it out. We encourage and are encouraged by so much media continuing to elevate just how dangerous this could be for American democracy. That's got to be our focus for the next year.
Kevin Munoz, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Before we go, I'd like to give you an invitation. Please check out the final episode of my CBS News podcast. It's called Agent of Betrayal, The Double Life of Robert Hanssen. It's out now on Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, and Spotify. That does it for today. You can stream America Decides Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. That's Eastern Time. You're streaming CBS News.